Welcome to the show, you two.
Thanks for having us.
You two wild Aussie kids.
Yes.
Here we are. I love the accents.
Yours too.
I'm not going to, I guess I do have one.
You
I'm
do?
not going to imitate the Aussie accent because it's just mortifying. Do people try to do that and they sound British?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't fly.
Not even British.
Not even that. Yeah. Actually, it's mortifying when American, who's not an actor and trained as such, tries to emulate a British accent too, now that I think about it.
Yep.
But I am pretty good at identifying the Aussie accent. It's the South Africans that'll get you. Those guys, you think if you go New Zealand, and then they get you. No, South African. It's a very unique accent.
It is.
I was listening to Elon Musk on Joe Rogan a couple days ago. And where the hell is this guy from? He has the weirdest accent. South African, of course. So when did you guys fly in?
About 24 hours ago.
And here you are already doing an interview. Have you done any quote unquote work yet?
Kind of, yeah. We've had a lot of
Yeah.
meetings,
Mm-hmm.
catch-ups, meetings, done a little bit of work, but this is our first interview here.
Oh, okay, cool.
So-
Well, I'm easy. I'm low key, as you can see.
Awesome.
With a dog, got some spring water. We've got lots of blue light keeping you guys awake.
Did you forage this spring water?
Actually, I normally do.
I know you do.
Yeah. And I have some foraged water in the garage in cold storage in these big Mylar, protective covers that I built. But this water's from livespringwater.com, and it is foraged in a sense from a spring in Oregon. It's very safe, by the way. It's been lab tested, triple, third party verified, all that stuff. But it's from a spring in Oregon, and it's untouched by human hands other than just filling up the glass bottles, putting them in a refrigerated truck, and then someone carrying them into the apartment. So you're getting some of the most pristine, clean, life-giving water imaginable right now.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
I feel it.
So I'm really excited, you guys, because you're the first couple that I've interviewed.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm up to, I think, 160 shows or something. I've had a few shows about relationships, about sex. Those, of course, are my top downloads. People love to learn about the relationships. I've had John Gray and John Wineland and Neil Strauss and a number of people on talking about relationships. But those are all people talking about their relationships that happen outside of the podcast. So this is the first live relationship. I'm going to observe you guys like a zoologist and really dig into what makes your whole thing work. And of course, a lot of your work and your book has to do with relationships. So I'm really excited. I've got Chris and Lori Harder on the books, but you guys beat them to it. So they'll be my second couple.
Well, we just had dinner with them.
We just came
Oh,
from
no
dinner
way. Are you
with them.
serious?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Tonight.
funny. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been scheduling it, but you had me on your show before Lori did, so we're going in chronological order now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So before we jump into that, give our listeners just a little bit of background on each of you, if you would.
Well, I am an author and speaker, and I got on this path from hitting rock bottom in 2010, like most people, how they get on this path. I was actually a professional dancer and actress and TV presenter in my past life, as I like to call it. And then in 2010, I ended up in hospital, very unhealthy, unwell, and unhappy. And that was my rock bottom. I had a whole host of health issues. My whole immune system shut down. But not only was there physical things going on, a lot of emotional depression, anxiety, panic attacks. I had eating issues, all sorts of things. And I was in hospital, and I had a friend at the time who sent me a little care package, and this was a relatively new friend, and in that package was a book that changed my life and put me on this path that I'm on now, and that book was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
I was reading this book in hospital at the lowest point in my life. I had just been dumped again, no health, no job. I was sleeping on my friend's fold-out bed in her bedroom, in her lounge room. I had no money. My friends dumped me because I was going through a lot at the time, and it was too much for them. And so I was reading this book in hospital, and I would turn to my mom, and I'm like, why didn't you tell me this stuff? Like, why didn't you tell me that we can create our own life and we can manifest whatever we want? And she's like, I'm just doing the best that I could. And bless her, she was. But this sparked something within me, and I realized in that moment that I was responsible for getting myself there, and I was the only one responsible for getting myself out. So I went on to study holistic nutrition because for me, my health was the lowest hanging fruit. I needed to get healthy again. And from there, I realized that it's not just about what you do here in your mouth. It's not just about that. It's what goes on up here is so important. And so I went on and learnt this thing called meditation and yoga, and I studied energy healing work and life coaching, and I became obsessed with spirituality, personal development, and the whole self-help world. I went and bought every book that I could and learnt from all of the great teachers, went to every workshop and seminar that there was, and just totally immersed myself in this world. And it was out of desperation. And from there, I started this thing called a blog back in 2011, which not many people had back then. And I began sharing what I was learning. And it was just resonating so deeply with so many people. And it was getting so many views and hits, and I was like, oh, maybe I could just keep sharing and see what happens. And I began running workshops and events and writing ebooks and e-courses, and wrote my first book, then wrote my second book, started my podcast, began speaking all over the world. And here I am now doing the work that I do, inspiring women to really unlock their full potential, step into their true power, and live their best life. And I do that through my books, my podcast. We mentor a lot of people together through one of our businesses that we have together, our doTERRA business. And it's the most rewarding and fulfilling thing. And I could not have predicted it. And it's just the best. And getting to do it with my soulmate by my side is just awesome.
That's a crazy amount of accomplishment and transformation in 8 years. I don't know if you realize that.
I was enthralled. I was enjoying that.
Right, me too.
You've heard that story so many times.
When you said, the timeline, I'm going 2010. I'm like, it's 2018. I'm like, what? That's 8 years. How does that happen? Just to learn online marketing will take you 8 years, let alone like having the inner transformation, how to do the ebooks and the email funnels and the websites and the blog and the offerings and the online community and like all that stuff that comes after you really earn your keep, so to speak, and you have something to share. So that's incredible to be having the transformation and actually learn how to, it sounds so cold and gross to say monetize it, but to build a business for yourself. I guess there's no shame in monetizing. I have to get rid of that preconceived idea. Screw that. Monetizing's awesome. Get all the money. But seriously, you know what I'm saying though? That's a short amount of time.
Totally.
I think I started studying online marketing probably about 8 years ago with my fashion school. And that's a lot to learn there, leaving aside just the inner work. So
totally.
Kudos.
And the thing is, Nick will vouch for this, is like, I am obsessed with learning. Like, I just love learning. When I get something that I'm really passionate about, I will just go for it, read every book, listen to every podcast, and just immerse myself in it. That's my personality. But that also comes with another side where I need to learn, to really slow down and to not be go, 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 achieve, type A all the time, just to be.
I don't understand. What's the word slow?
Yeah,
what was that word?
I don't know.
Slow
How do you guys do that?
What is that?
I know. Do you know how to do it? Can you teach me?
Yeah, twice a day for 20 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
That's when I slow down. The rest of the time,
I know.
So on your spiritual journey and having read all these books and studied all the great teachers and stuff, on your podcast, who has been your all-time biggest dream guest that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to this person right now?
So many. I mean, every guest, including yourself, is someone. I don't just have anyone on my show. Like, every single person that comes on my show is someone who has moved me, and whether it's their podcast or one of their books, they've touched me. And so my podcast is literally my inspiration boards. And so, but one of the most, I think, spine tingling was Neil Donald Walsh.
I knew you were going to say that one.
Yes.
That's funny.
Oh.
God, I should have said it before you and shown my psychic abilities.
Yeah.
God damn it. Missed the opportunity.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Yeah. I remember reading Conversations with God, like, I don't know, I want to say 15 years ago, something like that. And just going, what? That was an amazing entryway into spirituality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Life-changing.
Yeah. It's weird that the stuff that's, I'm not big on the spiritual teachings usually that are challenged, or not challenged, that are challenged. Those people that have disabilities that are spiritual teachers. No, I'm just kidding. That are channeled. Mm-hmm. You know, your Abraham Hicks, all that kind of stuff. When someone's like, oh, cool, I hear voices and they tell me what to write. I'm like, pfft. But with Neil Donald Walsh, at least I'm not familiar with his other work, but that one book, I mean, you're just like, there's no way a dude made this up. And Course in Miracles, similar kind of thing. Like those guys just poof, kind of made this thing that's so profound. The 12 Steps, also, Bill Wilson said he sat down and wrote that in about 20 minutes. I mean, he had a little bit of it from this thing called the Oxford Groups, but some of the most profound teachings have been channeled. And then there's like the other 9 million teachings that are total bullshit that have been channeled that are totally dumb and not very useful. So good on you for getting that one done.
Oh, yeah.
And another one you had on that I want to get to that I think is amazing is Bruce Lipton.
He was my second person.
Yeah,
I'm about
that was a great interview.
I'll connect you with him so you can get him on. He is such a beautiful person. Now, it's interesting, like, as you know, like doing podcasts, well, I do all of mine over Skype or Zencaster, sorry.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's technical difficulties.
Oh, I know.
And it's interesting, some of these spiritual teachers lose it. They're losing it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, you're meant to be like fully enlightened. And they lose it. But, he was, as he was on the podcast, is how he is in real life. And it's interesting because some people shift. They go into like a persona where he was just the same. And so beautiful, so generous with his time. Like gave me, some people are like, all right, Melissa, I've got 45 minutes. Let's go. Where he was like, let's keep going. Like 2 hours. I'm like, oh my God, amazing. He's just really generous, beautiful, beautiful person and so knowledgeable. And the wisdom that just comes through him is like next level.
Yeah, it is.
I'll connect you with him so you can have him on.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. Yeah, I just got invited to one of his events in November. I have to see if I can figure it out.
Oh,
I don't think I've ever seen him speak. I've watched a lot of his YouTube videos.
Yeah, me too.
And then I've attempted to read Biology of Belief, and I'm like, wait, too dense, too smart. What's your story, Nick?
Well,
I was just listening to your music on Spotify. Those of you watching on Insta and Facebook Live, Nick Broadhurst right here, this handsome Aussie devil, a beautiful record. Go on Spotify and listen to it right now, maybe in the background while we're recording. Those of you listening to the podcast will, of course, link to it in the show notes. And you can get those show notes by going to lukestory.com/newsletter. Put in your damn name and email, and I'll send you these Nick notes right now.
it's a good call to action. I like that.
Boom.
Yeah.
Speaking of online marketing.
You've been studying that. I'm
a
impressed.
little bit here and there. Yeah. You can also text Lifestylist to the number 44222 on a U.S. phone and be added to the email list too. What?
Very good.
That's next level.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But it confuses people because it only works on a U.S. phone. So then you get people emailing your website. I tried to do the thing, and I said only on U.S. phones. Knucklehead. So how'd you get into a relationship with this lady? How'd you get into music, meditation?
Wow.
What's your story? Did you have a rocky past too, or did you just come out of the womb spiritual and happy?
Definitely not. No, look, I had an interesting journey. I grew up in a house with a very conscious, very awakened father, very out there father. So I was surrounded by it, but that didn't mean that I actually took it up in any particular way, but it was there. And I think I ignored it very much for most of my life. And in my early 20s, I was in a band called Sneaky Sound System. And we had #1 album in Australia and ARIA Awards, is like the Grammys. world tours, longest singles on the charts. Like it was a big deal back then. And I was the youngest of the group, and I was very, very much part of the machine. I was very managed because I was the youngest, and I didn't really feel like I had a voice.
How old were you when you guys started to achieve success?
Look, we started when I was 21, and we worked incredibly hard for about 4 or 5 years until it really clicked. And then it really clicked. Like we sort of launched the whole electronic music scene in Australia. It was a really interesting time to be in that scene. Fashion was coming to life and electronic music was coming to life. It was a really exciting time. But around that time, I met my ex-wife, and we had a little boy on the way. And when he was born, I realized, first and foremost, I didn't want to be away from him. But also, I was kind of somewhat pressured into getting a real job. So I left music, which has always been my thing. I've grown up on the stage performing. And I left that and went into real estate. And I had to really earn my stripes, like starting from the bottom up, knew no one, it was really hard work. But in a short time, within 5 years, I'd worked my way up from sort of $100,000 apartments to an average sale price of 6.7 million. And I was awarded the top agent in Australia.
No way, that's crazy.
Yeah, but that came at a cost.
Yeah.
Because to achieve that, I had to push really hard.
Yeah.
And not just pushing with the career, but I was pushing against everything that was true for me. And so I think, I know for sure that once I'd reached this point of thinking I had it all, I had the money and I had the house and the car and the wife and the son and everything looked rosy. But then it all started to implode completely. My marriage started falling apart. I got meningitis. That's a whole story in itself, which is quite fascinating. But
what is meningitis?
It's basically an infection of your spinal fluid and fluid in your brain.
Damn.
It's quite dangerous. Like
spinal meningitis.
Well, it's just
is that what they call it?
Meningitis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's a inflammation of the meninges, to be technically correct, and essentially could have killed me, and almost did kill me. And so from that, I came out of the hospital. My marriage was falling apart. I spent a few months trying to sort of recover, but I didn't know how to recover. No one told me how to recover. They didn't tell me my nervous system was completely destroyed. And then I separated from my now ex-wife, and then I had the financial stress, 2 homes I had to maintain because she was a stay-at-home mother. I had my son who was heartbroken. The stress was incredibly strong. And about 6 months after that meningitis, my body completely just packed it in. Completely went, you know what? I've had enough. And I think up until that point, I felt completely invincible my whole life. I felt strong. I was fit. I always looked strong. And I think the universe said to me, dude, if you don't get this sign now that you're on the wrong path, then when will you ever get it? So, let's take away your health and see how you go. And so I spent about 3 years essentially bedridden, couldn't work. We sort of were living a very parallel hospital sort of life. We didn't know each other at the time, Melissa and I.
But it was around the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Similar
2009 and 10.
Yeah, similar time.
Imagine you're laying there sick, not knowing that your soulmate is
doing the same.
A couple cities away in Australia, just getting mended to meet you.
Oh, I know.
Funny thing is, we actually both reached out to the same girl around the same time who was a cancer survivor. Her name is Jess Ainscough, and known as the Wellness Warrior, really well known in Australia. And Jess became Melissa's closest friend, complete soul sister. And I'd reached out to her as well. So we somehow had this weird connection through Jess.
At the same time.
At the same time.
And she did coaching and whatnot?
No, we just reached out because she was...
She was like a health
inspiration.
advocate, inspiration in Australia.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Excuse me. I moved the microphone.
It's all right. They'll take it out. Editors, remove said cough, please.
And long story short, where do I go from there? I basically slowly found my way back into music. But in that time, I actually studied internet marketing. I was in bed right? So I couldn't really do much. So I thought, hey, I need to find something that which can pay me from home. So I studied that, and then...
Did you read the 4-Hour Work Week?
Oh, I did. Yes. Yeah.
Well, Tim Ferriss is responsible for so many online business people, probably.
Oh, 100%.
Like, we all read that book and we're like, wait, what? You don't have to go clock in at the office or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
So,
Jeff
yeah.
Walker, you read that?
All the product launch formula stuff.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, he's
yeah.
big in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, you
marketing.
missed
Okay.
out that one. But
I did.
but yeah, so like I'd studied internet marketing and had this wealth of knowledge, and I'd launched several businesses and failed miserably because they weren't true to me. They were just things I was trying to do for money, right? But then we met, and in fact, we wouldn't be together without conversations with God, because I was about to marry another woman, actually. Had the engagement ring, everything was lined up.
Are you a homewrecker, Melissa?
No.
Where's this going?
No.
The other one's listening to the show like, I'll get you. I'll cut you.
No.
It's got a happy ending. But I had a great relationship, actually, with this woman. She saved me in many ways, came in when I was unwell and really helped me heal. She was, she is a beautiful person. And I went on a surf trip for 2 weeks in the Mentawais of Indonesia. And I was on a boat in the middle of nowhere, no technology, no phones, nothing. You could not communicate with a single person. And I had 3 books with me. I had Venture Deal, which is a venture capital book, because I had a magazine at the time, which I was funding, and a digital magazine. And I had Conversations with God and The Way of the Superior Man.
Oh, nice.
Right. So
That's a good start.
I'm cocooned, and I have 3 books, so I'm going to read them.
And no Wi-Fi for 2 weeks?
Well, nothing.
Yeah, you had
Just
nothing.
nothing. Couldn't even make a phone call, right? So I read this passage in Conversations with God, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like this. It was, let your love propel your beloved into the world so they may experience the fullest version of themselves. Only then have you truly loved. And I read this, I can picture it right now. I'm lying down in the depths of this boat, smelling like diesel petrol. And I'm looking up, and I just remember looking at the ceiling, which was about 6 inches above my head, and thinking, holy crap, I've got to let her go. It just dawned on me that I was actually going to hold her back if I didn't let her go at that point. So despite having the ring, everything, I was going back to propose to her.
Wow.
And when I arrived back, she'd had the same epiphany, but we were perfectly happy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
So awesome when you want to break up with someone and they're like, as a matter of fact, I've been wanting to talk to you too. Not when they're faking it though, because there's that thing too. We're like, I don't think this is working out. And they go, me either.
Yeah.
And you're like, no,
Yeah.
you weren't really, yeah. So, wow, fortuitous.
Yeah, and then we met about 6 months later, and we had a beautiful connection. It was very quick. We were engaged in 2 weeks.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys just blew my whole theory. All right, we got to talk. Carry on.
It was a really interesting 2 weeks. I felt like I was being almost puppeteered by some other entity. I was just being kind of moved, and
Your love was being channeled?
maybe. It was bizarre, to be honest, but effortless. It was like there was no question whatsoever. I met this woman. We connected. The first proper date we had, we were talking about getting married, and it just
Oh my God.
it just happened.
Oh, I can't wait to get into this.
Yeah, you can sort of unfold more from that.
Yeah.
So we were married in 5.5 months, and it's been a wild ride. And I do have to say that it is amazing to meet your match, for sure. Like, it's a beautiful thing. But you are signing up for the biggest challenge of your life, just about. I mean, being a parent is one thing. You know, Leo, my son, Melissa's stepson, is 12 now, and that's a whole journey, you know. But meeting your one is a real challenge, and it's a real support. It's yin and yang, it's 50-50, it's support and challenge in equal measure. It's light and dark, and it's everything. So it's been an interesting journey, but I love her more and more every single day. And Melissa had a very interesting experience last week, which is a whole other conversation. She actually had a near-death experience. She was in intensive care.
What?
A week ago. We
What?
almost, yeah.
And you still took the trip?
Yeah.
Like,
Just.
And I can't.
this won't stop me. I'm going to LA.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it because we realized that. Well, Melissa realized in that moment it was actually the third book that she'd been waiting to come to her, and it came to her in this near-death experience. It's a wild story, but I actually thought that I'd lost her a week ago.
What?
About 5 times. It was very scary.
Very, very scary. I was completely unconscious, ambulance. It was full on. And he thought I was gone.
What?
Oh, no.
But you don't want to talk about it because it's the meat of a new book.
Yeah.
An upcoming book. That's fine.
Well, it's
we'll
also-
do another interview and we'll go back to it. I
It's
respect
fresh
that.
as well. It's really fresh.
Yeah, we
And,
don't need to go into it, but
yeah.
that's from your perspective, leaving aside Melissa's experience of that, having really heard when you said this is the love of my life and everything's going along as planned or not planned in the most beautiful way, wherever the case may be, to have that, the prospect of losing that is pretty incredibly intense.
Yeah, it really, it was a wake-up call for both of us, I think. But it just made things a lot deeper for me. I look at her sleeping now and just thank freaking Christ that she's still alive.
Oh man, that's awesome. You guys are so cute.
Aw.
Damn. I'm so glad this is on YouTube, I mean, my shoots are like one camera, so you don't get to see the in the future when people start supporting my sponsors more, I'll have a camera over here getting her when she's talking to camera. You know what I'm saying? The 3-4 camera shoot, because it's a really beautiful thing to watch you guys interact. It's very special. Okay, so does that bring us up to date?
And here I am.
And then also you're still doing your music. I mean, this is a new record, right? Thank You.
Yeah, so Thank You came out 2 months ago, and
Cool.
That's kind of like the record of my life to now. It's a whole journey on there of everything, really. And it's been a beautiful experience, and it's had a great reception. I've signed with a label in New York called Anti-Fragile, and that's going to a whole level, and we're touring together, and we created a show at the beginning of the year called Open Wide, which I did a song called Open Wide. Melissa did a book called Open Wide. We sort of connected our brands and did a real life musical, which was wild.
Really?
Yeah.
What's that entail?
It was like music
Yeah.
and motivation
A story.
mixed with meditation and story. So like he was going to tour on his own.
Yeah.
I was going to do a book tour on my own, and we were like, well, let's create something together. And so we created this beautiful experience, like a live rock concert for your soul. So think like Coldplay mixed with Tony Robbins coming
Wow.
together.
Damn.
It was
That's innovative.
awesome. It
was
was
great.
so much fun. And we
was
toured
great.
all around Australia. We sold out in every city.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was amazing. It was so much fun. It was our first thing that we'd done together because, Nick has multiple businesses and he's a serial entrepreneur, and you've got your podcast as well. You forgot to mention that. And so we've never done anything together. He's also the CEO of my business. He oversees high-level stuff as well. So we had never done anything together. So it was the first time we came together and collaborated together, and it was really beautiful. It made us realize how much we love doing it. And so many people were saying, thank you for being the example. And we're very, very real. Like, we don't pretend our relationship is all rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. Like,
That was
no
the whole-
one's is.
That was
And
the point at the beginning of the show, we said straight away that the show has to shatter that myth within the first couple of minutes, and we did.
Can you come out and just get in a major argument?
punch each other up, slap each other down. But I think that is a big misconception that a lot of people have, is that when I meet my soulmate or my one or my twin flame or whatever, that it's going to be rainbows and butterflies. No. And we have to get rid of that idea, because that striving for perfection is going to block you and keep you stuck. So we have to let go of that idea and just allow whatever is there whatever's going to show up, because whatever does show up is there for your growth. So it is the most beautiful thing, meeting your one, but it also really stretches you. Like, he is my biggest mirror. He stretches me. being in a relationship with your soulmate is like, you got to do the inner work. You got to take full responsibility for how you're showing up. You got to do the spiritual sit-ups. You got to go and do your meditation. And that has to be happening on both parts. It's not just one person growing and going to Tony Robbins. You've both got to be doing the inner work. Otherwise, you can't, how is there going to be growth and evolution?
It made me laugh because one of our friends, James Colquhoun from Food Matters, who'd be great on your show too, by the way.
The film?
Yeah.
Is that a documentary film? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got an amazing business with his wife, Laurentine. And he said to me, when one person in a relationship goes to Tony Robbins, it's like the end of the relationship.
That's funny. My business partner and I, who's my ex-girlfriend, Lauren, we recently went to Tony Robbins, and we had a great time. We both got very motivated.
Yeah, good.
In fact, we signed up for the second bowl of Kool-Aid in Florida.
Oh, good.
Coming up in December. You mentioned something, Nick, about, and piggybacking on what you just said, Melissa, is that when you have this meaningful soulmate kind of connection with someone, that it's going to be the most challenging thing ever. And it sparked kind of an inquiry, or, I don't know, a reference to my experience. I think in my personal relationships, many times, you have to be careful what you say, because your exes could listen to your shit, So I think I've been in relationships where, because of limiting beliefs about myself and low self-esteem, I've settled for people that aren't doing the work and aren't developmentally up to the task of really going deep. And so relationships have been difficult for me in some cases because there's been a lack of compatibility. But in that regard, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But when you said that, what struck me is like, oh shit, when you really own your own power, and I mean that in the most wholesome sense, that you're going to meet someone who's your energetic match, who is doing the Tony Robbins or whatever, we're just using that as kind of a blanket term for doing the work. And then the challenge is like, oh man, I met up with someone who's on the level that I'm striving for, someone that actually pulls you into it. Could you maybe speak to that? You know what I'm saying? Because I've been single for a long time now, and I'm like, I'm almost nervous to meet someone that's on my level and challenging. I feel the propensity or the tendency to almost like, I'll just pick someone who's easy, that doesn't challenge me. I don't want to be challenged by like a really powerful woman. Of course, I'm not going to elect to do that, but that's what I'm hearing. So when you said that, did you mean like it's been challenging because Melissa's like, hey man, I'm here, like, let's do this, go. What is that experience like for you? How is that challenging?
No, it's a good question. It's good to clarify, because it's really, I think, when you meet your match, it means you can no longer hide.
There you go.
You can't be average.
There you go.
Because you're going to get called very quickly. Which is great if you're up for it. And we're totally up for it. And to be honest, we could not have met a day earlier. We sort of both reached this pinnacle of feeling completely whole maybe a few days before we met. We've been doing so much work on our own, and we were both on a very, I guess, synchronous, exponential path at that point. We were just growing so quickly. And I hit this point where I was like, oh my God, I feel me. I feel it. Like, I'm good. I'm all freaking good. I just realized, like, I'm whole. I don't need anything else. And the minute you feel that, of course, in walks your match. So,
well, isn't that the secret from what I read in books, is that you have, being facetious, because I don't know that I've experienced it, but you have in a good relationship, not that, like you said, it's ever a walk in the park. I mean, obviously, like, the relationship is there for you to grow, but when you have two entities that feel complete and whole, as you said you arrived to, and then you join together to support a further exploration, celebration, expansion of your individual wholeness, unified with this third entity being the relationship. Whereas in some situations that I've experienced, you have two broken halves that are like, we're both broken in just the same places. We fit together like a puzzle that's missing a lot of other pieces. Let's lock in and just see how long we can go until the wheels fall off. Totally different type of challenge.
Yeah, I mean, look, that relationship could actually still evolve and move beyond those blocks.
But both parties
have to be willing
to show up. Because if they're not willing to show up, they're just going to butt heads. So you don't have to get to that place where you're like, I feel so much unconditional love for myself, inner peace and contentment and overflowing with self-love. I feel like meeting someone who is willing to do the work on themselves and for the partnership. Like you said, there's 3 entities. There's him, there's me, and then there's the partnership. So there's 3 entities that we've got to do the work on, do the spiritual work on. And we are so deep. When we married each other, we made a commitment to that. We made a commitment to show up each day as the best version of ourselves and do the work on ourselves. And I think that is something that needs to really be brought to the attention at the very start of a relationship. Otherwise, you're just going to butt heads.
Wouldn't that be one of the first things that you get clear on, right? Like, what is your life about? As I look at the prospect of having a relationship, I think that's probably the number one requirement. I mean, of course, just for having someone who has integrity and just has a solid core value system that they adhere to, right? I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. Someone that's on a level of consciousness that you can work with, where there's not horrendous flaws that they're still trying to work out. But I think that the other person really has to be committed to their path, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
You know, it can't just be like, oh, cool, I go to yoga every once in a while. I like green juice. Like, no, it's like, no, man, you're going for broke. You're going for the full Monty in terms of your own evolution. I mean, that seems like a first date thing. Like, what are you really about? What's your goal?
Totally.
Is it just to make money? Is it just to get a big house? Is it just to get Instagram followers? Like, not that there's anything wrong with any of that, but like, what's the real core value?
Totally. And that's what I talk about. Like in chapter 4 in this book, it's called Dive Into Your Ocean.
You've
and
got her book right here, ladies and
That's
gentlemen.
it.
It's right here. It's on our YouTube video.
And in that chapter, it's all about uncovering what are your core values, your beliefs, your interests. What are your life goals? Getting really clear on that, because most people have never really stopped to ask themselves those questions. Like, what do I want to create? What legacy do I want to leave? What's important to me? I mean, we do, and most of our friends do, because that's the circle that we move in. But a lot of people have never actually sat down and worked out, well, what are my core values? Something we did at the start of our relationship was what beliefs and values do we want to instill in Leo, who's our 12-year-old, my stepson, Nick's son? Like, what do we want to impart on him? These are things that people don't talk about. And if you don't know what your core values are, what your mission is, what you want to leave in this world, like how you want to show up in the world, then how are you meant to find someone who can match that? Like, we are just flying blind. And that's why I get everyone in the book to really uncover that for themselves first. And then it's almost like, right, when you're dating, you have this mental checklist. Not like, you can pull out your clipboard if you want. No, I'm joking. Do not do that. The guy will probably run in the other direction.
I can picture like the date being kind of like a corporate interview where you get out your mission statement, your
so
core
what is
values.
Your why?
Yeah, exactly.
What legacy do you want to leave?
Yeah.
But it's really important, because especially, and I talk about this in the book as well, like if you are not aligned on really important things like health, how is that going to work? Like, really?
I've experienced that.
Just a basic
That can
thing
be a
like health
problem.
is a real challenge.
Yeah.
If you're eating different food, that's a challenge.
Well, especially, I know, when I see
Simple,
a hot
but-
girl on Instagram and it's like, the happy vegan, I'm like, next.
Yeah.
We would never get along. It's like, it's not happening. And no offense to any vegans listening. It's a lifestyle choice,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I just picture a pain in the ass. Where do you want to eat? I don't know where you want to eat. Let's go to Bel Campbell and get a burger. Oh, that's right.
can't.
That kind of thing.
Well, it's also unity. Like, if you look at when you meet anyone in life, like let's say you go out to, you're in your early 20s and you go to a nightclub and you're drunk and you meet a girl and you hit it off. You guys have some unity in that moment because you have a goal of maybe having sex, right? So you go home, you have sex, you have a one-night stand, and you had that unity. There was enough unity to sustain that relationship for the night, right? But that doesn't mean there's enough unity to take it to the second date or the third date, right? So that naturally dissolves, right?
Right.
But when you meet someone like Melissa and I have met, there's so many points of unity
Right.
that that is going to carry us through so many challenges. And if you're lacking a lot of those points of unity, when those things come up, where you are misaligned is going to become the friction point, you know?
Right.
And so we're fortunate that we geek out on the same stuff. When we first met, we were sitting at Bondi Beach having conversations on the sand for hours, zero expectations, not even attracted to each other. Like, seriously, we didn't even see each other like that. We were just having this very open conversation about, I just read Sex at Dawn and I was like, no, I'm not getting married, you know.
Yeah.
And we're speaking about...
I've interviewed so many people. I'm like, because I want to ask you guys about open relationships. I'm like, all right, are you through the Sex at Dawn phase yet? Have you figured out that this, at least for me, that was a fleeting experiment?
Fleeting. It was fleeting because we were engaged 2 weeks later. So
yeah, and then you're like, what I came to is like, oh yeah, bonobos, cool. Everyone bones everyone. This is great. Yeah, I'll just live like that. And it's like, well, we're not bonobos. Okay,
yeah, exactly.
We're closely related. Okay, but like, do I sit there and eat my own excrement and throw it at the wall? No. So maybe I shouldn't have a harem of bonobo women. And think that we're all going to get along and live happily ever after.
Totally.
It's a good segue, though, actually.
But it is. Yeah. But I want to just emphasize one other point in terms of that compatibility. Do you think that having shared values is one thing? I think that's non-negotiable. Okay, like if somebody totally values the material plane and they're not really on a spiritual mission, or if they just if they're dishonest or disloyal or selfish or narcissistic, I mean, there's just certain character flaws that are just, this won't work, right? They got to go work that out. Not that anyone's perfect, but some of us have worked on a lot of those things. But then there's just lifestyle compatibility. And I think about this sometimes. And again, I can only reflect back to my own experiences. But there's been times where they're totally into different stuff and I'm into different stuff. And I'm like, cool, we'll be individual. But for me, my lifestyle is so hardcore and it's so specific. The health and the things and all the stuff that I've sort of come to, someone kind of has to be on board because this is my work and it's my whole life. So do you think that if people, like you were in real estate and say you're in online marketing and you guys don't share kind of the same hobbies or sort of niche interests, do you think if your interests were not your work that you would have to be less aligned in that way?
Yeah, look, I think...
In terms of this, you said you geek out on stuff. Like, how do you draw the line there on, like, how much you have to have in common?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please, anyone.
I feel like that is so fine. He's into surfing. I'm not. I don't really enjoy the water.
Well, no, you love the water.
I love the water.
But just not surfing.
Don't enjoy getting smacked in the face by giant waves? I'm with you, girl.
Yeah, I hate it. But there has to be, and this is the key to any relationship, and especially your relationship with your beloved, is respect. There has to be respect for that person's interest or hobby or whatever it is. So I don't necessarily have to love the ozone machine and the infrared sauna. I could do it maybe once in a while, but I have to respect that that's so important to you, and it's not about belittling you. Oh my God, you're going for another ozone, or oh my God, far out, he's going for another cryo. Like, do you know what I mean? So there has to be that deep-rooted respect for that other person, and whatever it is.
It comes from love.
That comes from, yeah, exactly.
That's where it stems from. And I think that the whole point of a relationship is that it's this beautiful container that wraps you up together and allows you the environment, the conditions to accelerate your personal growth, to accelerate your spiritual development, if you see it that way. Now, if you're not aligned on some of the basic things, you're spending time putting energy into trying to sort out where to eat.
And money issues.
Right? As opposed to like, let's do the deep work together.
Okay, that's good. So some of those lifestyles seemingly really I have an alarm set at, sorry listeners.
To go to
I don't know if that'll, it's my go to bed alarm at
8 o'clock
every night.
What time is it?
It's 10.
He says at 8:30.
8:30, sorry.
And I get so pissed off every time it goes off because I'm like, I'm in my peak time right now. I'm in flow state at 10 o'clock. F you, phone. I'm not anywhere near going to bed.
You must be a Vata Pitta body type. Oh my God. For sure.
I have the most energy at midnight. Midnight, I think very clearly. I'm very creative. I'm friendly, gregarious.
That's Vata.
Until about 3 p.m., I'm a freaking zombie. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, totally lost my train of thought due to my self-imposed torture device known as a phone alarm. Oh, I know what it was.
Yeah.
So some of those, let's just call them lifestyle preferences or hobbies and things like that. You're saying some of those would be best suited to at least be in somewhat alignment so that you don't spend your time having conflict and like putting energy into fighting over the restaurant or the type of movie you want to watch and things like that. So if you kind of have similar taste in terms of how you like to spend your time, then you just kind of can lay back in the cut with that compatibility and then work on the things that are really deep and meaningful and transformative in the relationship. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're creating space to go deep together.
Right.
And I think that's the whole point. I believe that's the whole point of actually, like, why be in a relationship if it's not going to make you grow? Like, what's the point?
And you can't go deep together.
What's the point, you know? And then also, we were speaking about sex. Bonobos, that's right.
Yes, bonobos.
Okay.
Those fornicating beasts.
And, you know, that's a good point to raise because we're talking about love, of course. And if you're going to build a house, you need solid foundations. And I guess the unity points is like the concrete slab. You know, it lays that foundation and it's there, it's solid. Then you've got the love, which becomes the bricks. But if you don't have intimacy and sex, there's no glue that holds the whole thing together. And I think that's a really important thing to talk about because amongst all this development and growth, there must be a level of intimacy maintained because that's the one thing that you can do with your partner that no one else can do with them. If you're in a monogamous relationship, open's a different thing, right? But that's not our deal, obviously. And so that's been a huge part of our life. Like we were getting ready to go out to dinner and I looked at my wife and I'm like, you're fucking hot. And we made love quickly before meeting Laurie and Chris because I just, that's how we express ourselves. That's what's really special and important to us. And that's something we work on a lot. Like we really are so conscious of our intimacy. It's like, I speak about it a lot. I've got 2 podcasts coming out, one today and one next week, which is purely focused on the cervical orgasm. Because for a man to be able to take a woman to those places gifts them the experience of God. Like it gives them an experience of their highest self. And you get to do that for your partner. It's like the most amazing thing to do for someone. Yet these things just don't get spoken about because it's like naughty or, it just drives me nuts. It's
taboo.
Like,
it's funny. I would expect that Melissa would be the one schooling our listeners on the different types of female orgasms. So I'm impressed that you even know what that is.
Well, because when we met, I had really, I guess, schooled myself on this stuff, but really hadn't had.
So you're reading Way of the Superior Man, and you
just went deep into it.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the right partner to go there. So when we met, I was like, okay, she's ready and she's open, and let's go there. And that's for me as the masculine has been the most rewarding part. I think is being able to surrender what I believe to be the way, which was to have intercourse and mutually masturbate and have both ejaculate. It's like, sure, that's fine, but I realized there was another way, and that was to be of service to my queen, which has completely. I don't have to have a physical orgasm to experience the bliss of what she's going through. What she experiences in that moment washes over me and pays me much higher dividends. So that's been a huge part of our relationship, which I think is worth mentioning because it's the juice.
Oh, worth mentioning? Now the whole show is going to be about this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just delete the first part. Yeah, your career, you had a tough time early on, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the cervical orgasm. But seriously, though, it's interesting because I think, let's just very specifically to niche in on the topic of orgasm for the male and for the female bodies. Those of you listening that, or whatever, you'll figure it out energetically, right? It's always an energetic polarity going on, regardless of body parts going in and out. But I think it's fascinating. I've met women who don't even realize that there are different types of orgasms and have never experienced them. Most guys I know, they just kind of, you go, they had sex. You go, how was it? What happened? And they describe it and they go, yeah, weird stuff happened. I don't really know what it was. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't think a lot of men that aren't doing the kind of work you're describing are even aware of the energetics, the anatomy, the possibilities of the sexual experience with their female partner.
It's so important. It's like, I mean, for me, I don't know, it's who I am at my soul as a masculine being in this planet. I mean, of course, we all have masculine and feminine energy, right? But being a male, I'm predominantly masculine. And so tapping into that floods into every area of my life. If I hadn't had figured this out, in all my previous relationships, I was just doing what I thought was right, which was really, very surface level sex. And I never really enjoyed it. I just thought, really, it was just like mutual masturbation. It wasn't taking me anywhere, but now it's like, oh, well, how much further can we go? How deep can we get? Where can I take you? Where can we go together? So, I think it's everything just about. If you don't have that, what do you have?
I've done
So
a couple
important.
shows on something called orgasmic meditation, oming.
Oh, we
You guys
know.
familiar with that?
We've
We
done
know
it.
well.
Yeah.
We've had them on my podcast.
Oh, okay.
And a few years ago,
It was your birthday present.
he gifted me 10 days straight of omming for
Whoa.
my birthday. So we did like the 10, was it 10
With
day
him,
challenge?
just to be clear. Okay. Because within the oming community, it's, for those of you listening, you go back and listen to those shows, but you don't have sex, but you touch the, is it clitoris or clitoris?
You stroke the clitoris.
I know how to find the clitoris or clitoris finally, but I don't know the right way to say it. But anyway, you don't have sex, but within that community, like we could be like, you guys could be a couple totally monogamous, and I could be like, hey, Melissa, you want to ohm? Cool. And then they just do that, which is weird to me. It's way too much intimacy for strangers, but that is within some circles in the oming community. So when you say that he gifted you that, we're just going to clarify
we did
it was
it
him.
at home in our bedroom, and it was amazing because you get cracked wide open, like every chakra. You have to be open, and to experience these deep cervical godlike orgasms, you have to be open. You have to have an open heart, an open mind. You have to leave all of your crap at the door. You have to leave all of your limiting beliefs at the door. You have to be very authentic, honest, vulnerable, and real and present, because you cannot go to those places, that place of bliss, God, unconditional love, whatever you want to call it, whatever you resonate with. You can't go there if you're in your head. And he'll say to me, he's like, he knows straight away. He's like, you're in your head, baby. And I'm like, oh yeah, I am. And we can't go there together. So you really do have to have that openness, don't you?
You do. Well, I think that's the point of a relationship is to see how open you can be together, is to be vulnerable.
I brought up the ohm thing because one thing I think that's very cool about that practice is this idea of eliminating commerce. Hang on one sec. Editor, get rid of this part. Cancel my 10 p.m. alarm every day.
Which alarm should I turn off?
Bed. I don't know how to turn it off. Like when it's, oh, really? You mother.
Don't edit that out.
I'm very spiritual, except when it comes to technology. And then I'm a fucking lunatic. Like, honestly, I get so pissed at my phone and stuff. I mean, not really, but, you know what I'm saying. Okay, editor, sound editor, we are back in. One thing that I really like about the Om practice is that they talk about this concept of transactional sex, or having a sense of commerce in sex. And I think for many men that I know, including myself, there was this quid pro quo sort of thing going on with orgasms. Like you said, I love the way you said it, like two people essentially kind of masturbating inside of each other or whatever, But when I was younger and less aware, it was like, well, at the end of this thing, I want to have an orgasm, so I'm going to make sure to give her an orgasm, so then kind of she owes me. I mean, it wasn't that conscious, but it's kind of just the way it goes. You're like, cool, did you get your thing? I got my thing, especially when it's more casual encounter like you described, going out to the bar, meeting someone, having a sort of lower vibration connection. In oming, it's like the dude doesn't get anything quotes end quotes out of it other than sharing the energetic experience. And that harkens back to what you said about just, you're good. You don't necessarily have to finish your whole situation, but you make sure that she's taken care of, and that's where your pleasure is derived from, of having that shared experience.
Yeah, most of the time he doesn't orgasm or
Really?
ejaculate.
Really?
He will circulate the energy, like in Kundalini. He circulates the energy and uses that energy for his creativity and for other things. And it's really mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing to experience that, isn't it?
It is.
Have you? This is like this is like Bigfoot. I don't know if you guys have the myth of Bigfoot, or maybe it's not a myth. This is like UFOs. Okay, is a guy, and I've read books about it. I mean, I'm sure I have a book called The Multi-Orgasmic Man.
Oh, I
Yeah.
know.
believe it's
Well,
called.
And
Yeah.
we've read The Multi-Orgasmic Couple.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
have that, and I read it. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, what guy's really doing this? Can you legitimately have an orgasm where you come? We're going to have to make this an adults episode. I just realized we haven't sworn that much, but it's getting kind of explicit.
you can bleep out my F word before.
No, it's fine. I swear on the show, and people give me bad reviews on iTunes because of it. But F you guys. That's how I talk. And now I'm even worse. I'm more offensive now. I just say F instead of the whole word, but I direct it to the listeners that are offended. But seriously, so you can bust nut without said nut cracking. Or
Yeah.
is it more like you just kind of hold back at the edge and you're just edging and then you just stop before it happens? Or do you have an orgasm without the actual stuff coming out?
Yeah, so I guess the first point to make is ejaculation and orgasm being two totally separate things. So you've got to
For some of you aliens, yes. Go
Yeah.
on.
Well, I think, there's the belief that when a male does orgasm, he has to ejaculate, right? So I think we just need to just say, no, that's not actually how it works. You can have, just like the female can have, you can have a full body orgasm without losing semen, to be specific, right? So for me, that's happened a couple of times and almost accidental in terms of being able to circulate it to become full body orgasmic a couple of times. I don't think it's a very easy practice, but for me to not actually ejaculate and to recirculate the energy is very easy. I do that every time, just about. I didn't do it tonight though, because there was a mirror and she was just looking really hot. And I couldn't. I'm like, this hotel mirror is killing
Hotel
me.
flaw.
Yeah, it was the hotel.
Well, when you're traveling, sometimes sex is hot. The
Yeah.
environment changes and it's a stimulating situation in general. There's a novelty in that.
maybe it was
at
jet
times.
lag, but yeah. So for me, the practice of actually circulating, and I did it, an episode called conscious ejaculation, which is a term that I coined because I couldn't think of a better way to say it. It's kind of you're consciously going into the act of making love with a decision beforehand whether or not you're going to ejaculate. And the decision to do that means that you are retaining that power, and the feminine is going to challenge you the whole time. She's going to want to make you, because that's I guess the measure of a good feminine is they're going to make you step up and they're going to test you, right? So you go into that lovemaking session knowing I'm not going to, or I'm going to, and then holding back or circulating it and just being in full service, even though she may in the height of that moment want you to. The fact that you don't means she'll trust you more because she knows that you've got her.
Damn, you're dope. I could take in. I don't need to take notes because I'll listen back to this. This is good stuff.
Get it transcribed.
Good stuff. You could be my coach, my sex coach. All right, I finally got a girlfriend. What do I do, Nick?
Listen to my podcast.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. What's the name of your podcast, by the way? I admittedly have not heard it yet. I'm sorry.
That's all right. The Nick Broadhurst Show.
Oh, cool. Wow, got creative there, huh?
Really creative. Put both of them.
Used to be something else, but I changed it.
We'll link to it. And you interview people, or you just riff?
It's just me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
courageous.
Mm.
I did one solo show, and it was episode number 1, your intro. And then the only other way I do it is if I go to a live talk, I'll record it. And if I think it was decent, then I'll put it out as an episode. But sitting there alone in your studio on the mic is very daunting. Even doing these intros, I'll do an intro for this and, talk about what we discussed in the episode and stuff. And I'm like, oh, God, it's so nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I can sit here and do this for, 24 hours straight, which sometimes I almost do on this show. But yeah, the solo stuff, man, kudos. I'm going to have to listen to that. So
I feel my most comfortable when I'm being super vulnerable. It's
interesting.
kind of weird, but
And he's got so much to share, not only on conscious relationships, but he talks about spirituality, entrepreneurship, creativity, health, everything. He covers everything, and he's got so much to share.
Well, because life is full spectrum. So, in order for me to become who I've become, and I'm very happy with who I am, and I feel like I have a long way to go. I feel like I'm in consciousness kindergarten, really.
Yeah.
But it's the full gamut. Like, you need to go into all areas. And I think that's what I wanted to share with people, is that this work of self-development is holistic. It's really important to address all these things. And you could have all this stuff, but if you didn't know about being of service to your partner in lovemaking, you're missing out on so much that then floods through into other areas of your life. So once you get the whole thing working as an ecosystem, everything else starts to function better, But that doesn't mean that everything's perfect. Like, we've had our challenges. I've spoken very candidly about my challenges on my podcast, but that's the point of being in relationship and being a human being, is that you're going to experience light and dark in equal measure your entire life. And if you think it's going to be more light than dark, you're delusional, because there is no such thing as that. There is yin and yang. They're perfectly balanced. So that's been a big wake-up call for me, is realizing that we have just as many challenges as we have support with each other. And once we really embrace that, we now look at look at those challenging times and go, okay, cool. This is just part of the game together that we're playing,
This is a growth period.
It's a growth period. And right now I'd say we're definitely in a support period where we're just really strongly aligned and everything's flowing beautifully.
That's good that happened when you're on a trip.
I know.
You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you've had those experiences where you travel with someone and it all falls apart. Like,
well, we had a trip to Greece just a few months ago, and
it was a tough one.
We weren't aligned on some stuff. It was really challenging. It was great. It was beautiful, but it was challenging.
No, we were aligned, but some stuff came up for me.
Right, there were some triggers
some triggers that came up for me, and stuff for me to look at and work on. And so, yeah, that was really challenging. It was a challenging time, but we're in this. We're committed. We're in it. He's constantly doing the work on himself. I'm constantly doing the work on myself. Like, we're seeking mentors and coaches when we need it. You don't have to do this thing called life on your own. And it's okay to ask for support and help and guidance. We still do all the time from our guides and our mentors and our coaches. And I think that's really important. And whatever area in your life that you need a little bit of extra support, reach out. Reach out to the person or the people who are excelling at it ahead of you. And there's no shame in that.
When one of you is tripping out, as you said, you get triggered by something, and I guess that's the beauty of being in a relationship with someone who's self-aware to some degree, is they realize, like, okay, I want to kill you right now, but I know that this is my shit. That's a wonderful thing to have. I have relationships like that with my friends. They're like, I'm really pissed, but I can see right now it's my shit, but I'm still pissed. It's a great place to be. But when you guys have conflict like that, other than taking responsibility for your own feelings, emotions, your own baggage, your past, how do you resolve conflict? How do you guys communicate when it's successful?
You can see we both went to talk that because we know this so well. Well, we've spoken about it as well, but we have had to learn this, because the faster you get this, the faster you move through stuff and the faster you grow together. And it's actually quite simple, but so freaking hard to do. And actually, this is something which Melissa speaks about in her book, Open Wide, and it comes down to one phrase. And if you can remember this phrase, it changes everything for you, in not just your romantic relationships, but everything. And that phrase is, nothing good comes from closing. Right, so
that's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah, we
when you start to feel threatened, it's like
contract,
withdraw into yourself. It's just such an innate reaction,
and it's really hard to get back when there's two people who are closed. And so, what has to happen in that situation? One of you has to yield. One of you has to yield at some
Which
point.
means getting vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And being willing to still get hurt.
And just be sort of like, oh, I can see it. I can feel it. I'm closing, but I'm probably the less triggered one here. And I'm going to do my best to open and just give yourself that space and like, okay, and you don't want to do it. It's really hard, but you roll back over in bed and you start playing with their hair or something just to say,
Oh, God, but that sucks so bad when you do that. And then the person's like, get away, dick.
And they will.
And they're like, ah. And then you're like,
and they will.
oh,
You know,
God, that's the worst.
That's the challenge. You
That's
know,
the worst.
You've got to move through that and say, the minute that you commit to opening, and it doesn't always happen this way. I mean, I think it was a couple of weeks ago I opened up to something and I really stayed at it for like a good couple of hours. I was trying. And then after like so many knockbacks, I was like, I'm done. And then it carried into the next day, but I was on the precipice of moving through something really big with Melissa and I just didn't quite get there. But the minute that you yield, eventually the other person's going to crack open. If you just stay in that heart space, you stay open. And so for us, that phrase of nothing good comes from closing, once you know it, you're sort of signed up to no longer be really shitty and average because you've got a key that can unlock any situation.
God, it's so true because, I think the propensity to close comes from wanting to teach the other person what to do and what not to do, right? It's like if I close, I'm like, I'm punishing you, bitch. Don't act like that. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Or to be right.
Yeah. But it doesn't actually work, though. That's the thing. It's a faulty tool. It doesn't work because the other person closes and then there's no resolution. It's just the worst.
And all closing is going to do is prolong the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
you
increase
take
it
and
as well.
increase it and prolong it, and you're going to take it into the next day, and then the next day, and then the week, and then the following week. And so, like, we both have this deep level of self-awareness where we're like, we may as well just talk about it now and get over it. And sometimes we stay closed for maybe a few hours. We used to go to bed angry and then and closed, and we put a really firm line in the sand that we will not do that ever again. Whatever needs to be resolved must be resolved that night because we don't want to carry that into the next day.
So true.
That
I do that with
energy.
myself. I mean, even just being alone and single, if I got something on my mind, I have to work it out before I go to bed.
Totally.
Or something that has to be discussed with anyone or just journaling or praying or whatever it is. Yeah, that's the worst when you go to bed with something. It almost like it cements it in.
Totally.
So, it like locks it into your subconscious and then you can't get out of that pattern. Mm-hmm. Do either of you ever have any issues with jealousy or anything like that? Do you get possessive with one another or mistrustful or anything like that?
Definitely not mistrustful.
No, definitely not mistrustful.
I've experienced it in every relationship I've had. I've had partners who have been, I don't want to say like, it sounds like a judgment when someone else, has an affair or something like that, but I'm equally contributing to them going somewhere else. It took me a while to realize that, it's so easy to go, you're the one who did this. You're the one who did that. You went off with that person. And it's like, whoa, hang on. Like, what did you do to make her?
You didn't have your cervical orgasm down.
Correct.
Yet,
I definitely was lacking that too.
I'm sorry. I'm totally making light of your heartbreak. But,
No.
I think, that's a very good assertion and realization there, that even when one has been quote unquote wronged, it's like, well, you participated in that relationship to whatever degree.
We're creating
in a
everything.
position. Yeah.
It's always a co-creation.
Takes two.
So you don't
tango.
really get the jealousy thing. Wow, that's such a relief. What kind of issues do you guys have if when you're pissed at him recently and he was making that effort to not close? Like, what kind of shit do you guys bicker about or have challenges with?
Mainly the biggest thing is, and something that I'm really working through at the moment for me, is parenting. Being a parent to Leo is a huge trigger for me. He reflects back to me so much that I need to heal with my mum and some family stuff and some family tree stuff. So he is a very big mirror, and it's taken me a little while to see that. And before that, it had played out as confrontation. So we would bicker around Leo, really, was our biggest thing, and parenting. Not we're aligned on how we believe to parent, and that's another thing that you need to be aligned on when you're
Right.
getting with someone. Like,
Right.
if he believes in smacking kids and I don't, how is that going to work?
Oh, yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
You need to talk about this stuff before you potentially have children
Yeah.
with someone else.
Yeah. There's a lot you have to talk about with kids before you decide to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You've got vaccines and circumcision and what they're going to eat and breastfeeding and all sorts of things that really have an impact on a kid's life.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. And I see it all the time. I see people get together, have a kid, and one believes in vaccinations, one doesn't. One believes in McDonald's, one doesn't. And it's just like this. Butting heads.
Yeah. Can you imagine
constantly.
the paleo parent and the vegan parent like trying to figure out? Paleo dad's like, if you breastfeed it, they're not vegan anyway. So let's just go.
Yeah.
Like, let's get a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Interesting. So yes, that makes sense. I can imagine that must be challenging. I think blended families in general present a whole other set of lessons, as I can imagine. You know?
Totally. Like,
Yeah.
it's not natural. It's normal and it's common. So many people are in blended families, and Nick's parents are still together. My parents are still together. So we don't know what being in a blended family is. Something that I've really had to learn how to navigate, because it's not normal. It's not natural.
Yeah.
It's not how.
In our culture, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
Bonobos, they get down with it, no problem.
Totally.
No, but it's true. When you look at indigenous people, you know, when you study tribes and things like that, which I do oftentimes just to study their social structures and things like that. And oftentimes the couple that procreates and has the kid doesn't even raise the kid. The kid's like raised by the village and stuff, you know.
Totally.
Even now, like indigenous peoples in Africa, the one baby's passed around to any lady that's lactating. Just, you know, there's things like that. So, but in our nuclear family, you know, our parents of the 40s and 50s or whenever they were about, I mean, it wasn't kind of normal, you know. Ideally, you get married young, you have 2 kids, you all stay together, and the blending is a relatively new phenomenon in Western culture. There's no exact science to it yet.
But even if you look at the tribal example, that's just an example of a larger family.
Right.
They're still a family.
Right, that's true.
And they're still together. And they still have the understanding of how that's all going to work.
Right.
But when you separate and you have all of a sudden, you know, Leo's mother, my ex-wife, and you have Melissa, my wife now, and it's normally in a relationship like that, you part ways, you know, and but now there is this connection to this person, you know, and you parted ways because you were no longer aligned.
Right.
But now you are connected through this child,
Right.
and you have to find a way to find unity. Otherwise, it's incredibly challenging. And you know, we found our way. We didn't always have unity, but we have unity now, which is great. But it's taken a while. But thank God, because it's not pleasant.
Well, also your kid's 12, and that's the time that nature starts going, okay, now kid, you got to start hating your parents and doing all kinds of crazy shit because we want you to learn how to go out and survive on your own. I mean, literally, it's biologically sort of set that they're going to start asserting themselves, you know, soon. Not like every kid is going to go start smoking crack and, you know, robbing people or something like that, but there definitely is that natural separation. And having had a stepmom when I was a kid, I mean, we did not get along at all. You know, there's jealousy about the original mom there, you know, like the whole gets convoluted.
And that's another thing, like there has to be, what I talk about in the book is crystal clear communication. And, you know, from day one, Nick has been really clear with me and respectful, you know, and said to Leo, like, Melissa is another equal parent. Like, he's been, you know, really, really respectful in that way, and that's helped me
That's cool.
transition
Yeah.
into this new role that I now play. And
Right.
which at the start I was just floundering. I was like, what the F am I doing? Like,
Right.
I was reading every freaking conscious parenting book under the sun. Like, I was like, what am I doing? I've just been thrust a 7-year-old. Like, how do I do this?
Not easy. It's challenging.
You know,
Yeah.
and it was really a big lesson and growth for me. But Nick has been amazing the whole way. He's very much, really practiced crystal clear communication with myself and with Leo, and that's really helped.
And Leo's been incredibly patient.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I've sat
He's-
him down and I've said to him, you know, I feel like I'm really sucking as a stepmom right now.
Aw.
And I just want you to know it's got nothing to do with you and I love you. But, you know, this relationship triggers my stuff with my mom. And that was incredibly vulnerable for me to even do
Yeah. I
with a
bet.
12-year-old. Like, I was sweating, shaking, and sat them both down when we were in Greece. And on this holiday, and
the infamous Greece trip.
the infamous Greece trip, yeah. And it
When the
was
wheels fell off a little bit.
oh god,
It
yeah.
did, yeah.
Big growth on that trip.
Other than having the context of, you know, I forget how you phrased it, but, you know, wanting to be happy rather than wanting to be right. Like, you know, nothing good ever comes of closing your heart, right? Aside from that, just as a framework, do you guys have any specific communication or conflict resolution tools you use? Like, for example, as a man, I find it difficult if the woman I'm in a relationship with just walks in the room, is like, hey, I got a problem with da-da-da-da-da, and just starts unloading some shit that I'm not, like, mentally prepared to handle. So for me, I really need, like, hey, I have a problem. When's a good time to talk about it? We set aside. I get my masculine energy. I get ready to not be a dick, to not close. I get all prepared. I mean, there's tools that I've learned over the years that just help compassionate communication. What do you guys do in order to not escalate conflict? Is there any tricks you might be able to share?
I talk about it in the book, and we talk a lot about it on our podcasts. It's called CCC, Crystal Clear Communication. A lot of us aren't practicing that. And what that actually is opening your heart and speaking your truth to that other person. A lot of us, and especially women, we think you men can read our minds. And you can't.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
I
ladies.
know. I'm like, can you guys work on that? Seriously. But you can't. And so it takes...
And we could also say to the men maybe, and we can't read minds, but also don't try to fix their problems, guys. Just shut up and listen.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. And I've had to say to him, like, I've had to open my heart, open wide. I've had to open my heart. I've had to be really honest, really vulnerable, and say to him, like, I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to listen. And that's how I work. And I know how he works. Like you, I can't fire things at him. I can't quit otherwise, and he can't do that to me. He knows how I work. So we've actually said, hey, this is how I work. It's just about practicing crystal clear communication, speaking from your heart, and you will get the other person's heart. But if you're speaking from your head, you're going to get their head. If you're like, you're a dick, don't do that. Don't come in here and bark orders at me. But if you say, when you walk in and you bark all of these orders at me, it makes me feel really overwhelmed and I don't know where to start, and it causes anxiety and cortisol to run through my veins. Do you think we could make a list and then approach it later, or whatever it is? Mm-hmm. Practicing crystal clear communication is our best tool. Do you agree? Or do you have something else?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think just also the solo work that we do, you know, just having a meditation practice. Same as you know, we do a Vedic meditation practice twice a day, 20 minutes, and being able to dip into that transcendent state, experiencing being every day, and then developing, cultivating that level of self-awareness so that when these situations arise, you can actually become the witness in that moment and be, okay, cool, I know what's going on here, and just sort of be present with it. And it's not always perfect. Like, trust me, I suck at crystal clear communication sometimes. And so does Melissa. Like, you know, we're human. Like,
we fall down.
But we have the tools and it helps us move through it. But we've had to learn that. Had to write a book on it to figure it out. You know?
Yeah.
You teach what you
I have to
mostly
do 2 books,
need to
2 podcasts,
learn.
world tour.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, you were talking about polarity and masculine and feminine energy. And I was curious about, now that some of you're the CEO of her company, you guys have money and a business that's intermingled within your romantic relationship. How do you keep the polarity there so that there's masculine and feminine and attraction when you're in kick-ass, let's make money and conquer the world mode? Because I know you, in order to do what you do, Melissa, and be as successful as you are, you have access to a lot of masculine energy.
100%.
Right? So
100%.
how do you, do you guys lay in bed and talk about your bank balance and shit?
Absolutely freaking not.
No numbers in bed. No numbers in bed.
But we have had to fumble our way through this because we've had to draw some very firm boundaries around this. Because when you work and live with your beloved, there was times where we worked until midnight together, going at it, doing launches and all sorts of crazy things, creating sales pages and all sorts of wild things into the night. And we'd get in bed and it's ideas and brainstorming and let's do this and let's do that. And it got to the point where it was just all go, work. And I'm like, hang on a minute. First and foremost, we are lovers. We are lovers. And if we're not making love regularly, then we're just business partners and
what's
roommates.
The point?
Yeah, and what's the point?
What's the point?
So, that, like Nick said before, that's the only thing that we share that we can't do with anyone else. Well, that's our chosen, that we have chosen not to do with anyone else. It's this sacred, special container that we have together. And so we've had to draw some very firm boundaries. And we both work from home as well, which doesn't bother Nick so much, but it really, it's a lot for me because this is my kingdom, this is my sacred space. As the feminine, we love pottering. We love being in our space, cooking and doing the things in the home. We love nesting, being in the home. And if the masculine's always there, the feminine can't fully express her feminine. And so we've had to set some boundaries around working outside of the house, around no work talk, no phones, no laptops. After 5:30, 6 o'clock, we're very good at this.
Oh, you are? That's awesome.
We sit down for dinner every night at 5:30.
Really?
Yeah. We eat at 5:30
cool.
together with Leo. And then after that, it's like family time. We play games.
It's play and...
Yeah, we play games as a family. Or if Leo's not there, we get into bed. And that's our time to play. And we read and make love and talk. That's our time to connect. But we had to do the opposite to then learn what was right for us.
You're not laying in bed making love then, hey, let's work on that sales page.
No, but we have done that.
And you learned that it didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
You know?
Normally someone will start talking about something in bed and we'll be like, whoa. Please, let's not go there. You know?
And the thing is we, like Nick said, we all have masculine and feminine energy. Everyone here has both, right? And in order for you to be and show up as the best version of yourself, you need to have an equal balance of both of those within yourself and then within your partnership. But if you're too masculine and he's in his masculine, you're going to butt heads.
Yeah.
And if I'm too feminine and he's feminine, again, you're going to butt heads. So it's about coming back to taking responsibility for yourself and how you're showing up, making sure that you are balanced within your masculine and feminine, and they are as well. It comes back to the self-work. So for me, I am in my masculine when I'm working. I'm doing it. I'm going for it. I'm creating. I'm writing sales pages. I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm touring, looking at Zencaster and statistics and stuff. And that requires me to step more into my masculine. But then when I close my laptop, I need to do whatever it is that I need to do to balance and get back into my feminine. So for me, it's like having an Epsom salt bath, going into the infrared sauna, doing some yoga, meditation, even having a shower and putting on something a little bit more feminine, or like a skirt, or tying my hair up, or putting a lipstick on, just whatever it is that makes you feel. Maybe we'll have a dance, maybe we have a sing off in the car or something like that.
Changing the energy.
And changing, Tony Robbins calls
State change.
state change, changing the state.
Yeah.
We call it a whoosh.
Yeah, you can call it a whoosh or whatever it is. And so it's my responsibility to have that level of awareness to go, right, I have been go all day. I've been looking at Xero and balance sheets and profit and loss statements and things like that. Maybe I've just come from an accounting meeting. And it's my responsibility to now step into wife and mama mode and cook a beautiful dinner and have that beautiful connection with my family. But if I stay in that masculine mode, we just end up butting heads.
Yeah.
And there's no lovemaking that night.
Yeah. No chemistry.
No chemistry.
I've experienced that. That's so cool. What you guys are bringing right now is so valuable for people, especially today when there are more laptop workers and things like that, entrepreneurs and people that travel around and want to be like power couples. I think a lot of people are probably unaware of the potential demise if you're not in tune with your own masculine and feminine. I mean, I'm super creative, super feeling, super feminine, artistic, making music. I mean, to me, creating is the most feminine thing ever, but not in a relationship. I'm not that. That's not my role. I'm not down with that at all. Like when, the romance thing is happening, it's like just doesn't work, but you got to each, I think, have that self-awareness, right? Where you have access, because you have access. You're an artist, man. I mean, art is super feminine.
It's a challenge because what I do in her business is very masculine.
Yeah.
And I mean, we have teams now, and I've been able to step out a lot more. And I've got very firm boundaries. I don't have email anymore. Like I've really managed.
Oh my God, what? You're my hero,
I
bro.
know,
We
me
need to
too.
talk. We need to do another.
He retired from email.
Email is my entire life, like literally every day. It's just ding, 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 ding. I check my phone after I meditate. It's like, you have 75 unread messages. Great. And that's not even like, I haven't even gotten to my thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
How
me,
the F do you do that?
yeah, look,
You literally don't use email?
yeah. So I reached a
God.
point
Oh my
where
God.
He
I still
was
use it as a
breaking.
tool, and I'll explain how I do it briefly, but
You did a podcast episode on it.
no, I'm going to.
Oh.
I'm waiting till I've fully embedded the success of what I've achieved, and then I'm going to disseminate that in a way that's easy for people to follow. But I did one called Inbox Zero, which helped people spend less time
Right.
in their inbox, right, and be really efficient, which is what I managed to get to. But with, I've produced movies and I have my music. I've got Melissa's business. We have, thousands and thousands of people in a doTERRA team. I have a podcast. There's a lot going on. I'm a dad. I'm a son. There's stuff, right? And
We're renovating a house.
renovating a new home. It's like, it's all happening. And before we went to Greece, about a month before that, I said, you know what? I'm not going to Greece with an inbox. I'm going to retire before I hit Greece. And I was like, I literally reached this point of desperation because I wasn't writing music. And I said, that's my line in the sand, is Greece. Because I don't want to be away with my family. It's the first time we took Leo to Europe with us. I don't want to be checking email. Like, I'm in freaking Greece. What am I doing checking my inbox, right? But people need me. People need me. They need responses from me. And I thought, no, they don't. They just need answers from someone who knows how to think like me. So I set out finding someone who could replace me, and I actually managed to find someone.
Wow.
And I trained them up, and I filmed myself doing emails for
Holy
days.
shit. You
And
did a Mr. Smith from The Matrix. You like made more of yourself.
I did. Yeah, it was a bit of a... I
So you
called her in somehow.
So you filmed someone answering your emails, and now someone is just basically acts as you, like a VA or a personal assistant?
The
of sort?
intention was to just manage my daily affairs, my
Okay.
inbox. So I filmed myself screen flow for
Uh-huh.
2 days, clearing
like saying,
my inbox
this is how I would respond
to
to
this person, and when this
Right.
legal contract comes in for that film, and this, because it's complex stuff. So I
Yeah.
just filmed it. I was like, this is gonna be the most boring 2 days of your life, but here's like 20 hours worth of emails.
Yeah.
Go and watch that. And we just developed a way to work together, and I scored big time with this girl, Brooke. She's a lifesaver, and she's now gone on to become Melissa's assistant and kind of running both our businesses in the matter of like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Incredible.
Wow.
And I, you know,
You must have really good karma.
I was going to say I called her in somehow.
Yeah.
But what he then does is we use an app called Voxer.
Got it.
Yeah.
I use that, yeah.
So Brooke will then Vox us, say, hey, Luke Stories just confirmed the interview on Tuesday night at blah, blah, blah.
Which she did say.
Yeah. All the details are in your calendar. And we'll be like, cool. So that, instead of us responding to the email, that's what she does.
God.
But Tim Ferriss, I read that he has a phone call a day with his assistant. So he does a similar thing where he'll then jump on the phone for 15 minutes and she will go, da, 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 da. We do the same sort of thing, but with Voxer.
Oh, that's smart. You could have someone. Yeah, I see that. Like I could have that 75 emails that are there by 10 a.m. and someone else read them and go, here's the gist of this, here's the gist of that. Yes, no, maybe, da, da, da.
But
And
a lot of
she
it
may
is-
answer 50 of them for you.
Yeah, a lot of
Right.
it she could probably answer. Like it might be like, we need Luke's bio for this speaking gig. Like you don't need
Right.
to do that.
Yes, thank you. I
Do you know what I mean? Like she can do
Far
that.
too important. I'm just kidding. But no, dude, like, as you guys know, the more stuff you get involved in, like, what happens is it just makes your email box grow. Like, people think success is this, glamorous thing. I find the more successful I am, it's just, in a way, it's more of a pain in the ass until you learn how to systematize things and,
Well, pain's
outsource and all that, which I have over the years. I mean, I'm being melodramatic, of course, just because I'm that way, but
pain
I
is
like
the
where you're
signal.
going, dude.
Yeah, pain is the signal to change. And,
It is.
And I just reached that point. Like, am I really going to let this piece of technology and the number of little unread emails dictate
That little goddamn
what
red
I
circle.
put out in the world? Is that
That
going to
red
stop me writing
circle.
music?
Son of a bitch.
It's interesting though, because I created all this white space and it immediately filled in with opportunity.
No, but that's because that's your personality. Like Nick is a serial creator and entrepreneur. And so literally he created all of this white space because he was spending hours a day in his inbox not doing what his soul wants to do, which is create music. And all this white space became available. And so his brain immediately is like, let's create this next program and app and this and that. And it's like create. And they are distractions from his true work, which is to write and produce music, beautiful music.
Yeah.
So that's something that he has to
Always working on
be
that.
mindful of.
Always. But I'm at that point where it's super painful to not be doing it.
Yeah.
To not be writing music. So, I've gone now really deep into music production and becoming the master of my own domain. Because I have a producer, but, just really taking ownership over that. And that's the only way I can really say I've got no excuses now. Because if you know what to do, everything in the studio, because I can produce, but to put that final magic on it, it takes a long time
In
to
America,
learn
we
that.
call that final magic the sticky icky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But you produced this to a degree.
Yeah, I
That's
produced-
like the sticky is like when you're retouching in it, a photo and it's like, it's that one
Yes.
last little boom. Or,
Yeah.
you put the freaking maraca, the missing maraca on the track that gives it that counter rhythm, and it's like, that was the thing that made it. I want to ask you guys about one more thing, and it was the very first thing we kind of talked about before we wrap up here. So you guys seem to be, you're married for a few years now. You seem to be working it out. Of course, as we've discussed, there are challenges that arise and you work through them. And the relationship is this amazing vehicle for your own individual growth. And you're modeling the type of relationship that I think I would want to have. It looks idyllic, although obviously challenging at times. Having been someone that's struggled a lot in this area, admittedly, I've talked about it on my show with my various guests. It's one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you two. Like, wow, you're doing the thing that I would like to do. But there's a part of the formula that's very mysterious to me, and that is the fact that you went so damn fast. And all wisdom that I've gotten from the elders is like, Luke, your problem has been you always go too fast. You lead with sex, you jump right in, you just go 100 miles an hour, you don't really know the person. Then later on, after a few months or a couple of years or whatever it is, then you find out who the person is, they find out how you are, and it erupts, and you have to evacuate the scene. So now my whole thing is like, okay, I'm never doing that shit again. I'm going to date someone for a year before we kiss. And I'm like, have all these very grandiose plans about going back to this biblical, very Quaker-like dating, courting thing where I pay for the movies and kiss them on the cheek and run out of there, as all these fantasies of the formula of success. You guys meet, you're talking about getting married on the first goddamn date and it worked out. What is up with that?
I think you kind of answered it yourself. Like, I guess you're putting expectations out there already for what it's going to be or what it might not be. And that's the key, is to not have any expectations. Because then it allows the other person just to show up and be who they really are. And so when you're going in there masking things by doing things because some elder told you to do it a certain way, you're blocking this person from just being themselves. And then you don't get to see them, And so for me, it's like, if there's alignment and it's rocking, go. Like, what are you waiting for? Like, why wait?
So that was your experience? Had you had experiences, either of you, before where you thought there's alignment and it's rocking and then you jumped in fast and got your ass blown off?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. No.
I see.
This was like nothing I've ever experienced before. So yeah, when we first got together, there was no expectations. None. It was just literally coming together and talking, and there was so much presence. Neither of us were in our head. And there was so much just trusting our intuition and trusting the feeling. It's like Nick said, it was almost like we were being guided. It was coming home. And I think your intuition always knows. And I'd never felt this before with any of my ex-partners, ever. It was like home. Oh, this is so familiar. This is so effortless and easy, and everything and every cell in my being was just guiding me to the next catch up, guiding me. Like the first couple of dates or times we got together, it was just literally spent hours and hours talking. Hours and hours talking and just deeply connecting, talking very openly, very honestly, very authentically, and very vulnerably. Like, we didn't have any expectations. And I think a lot of people enter relationships with this long with this long list of expectations, and expectations ruin relationships. And instead of just showing up as the best version of yourself, we have this Excel spreadsheet of expectations, and we're not present. So we can't really fully see the other person. We can't see and experience the magic that could potentially be there. And maybe it's not. Like, maybe that person isn't who is meant to be with you, but maybe they are, and you're so in your head and you're not seeing it.
You also, because you were like, I should do this, or maybe I should do that. You're just shooting all over yourself, right? And that's just blocking you from just showing up the way that is just you.
So perhaps there's no pat formula for protecting oneself from harm's way, right? I think what I'm looking for is like, okay, what are the 10 steps to like not get destroyed, in a year period or something?
This is very easy.
Yeah.
How can you be destroyed if you're whole?
Right. Yeah. Tell that to my half self. But
that is the key.
Yeah. But what you're saying is, this is the wisdom of the elders. This is, the more prudent way of easing into a relationship slowly and building intimacy over time, and, building a friendship with someone before you just like your whole relationship is built on, like you said, the foundation. I forget the word you used for the foundation. Like, if the foundation of a relationship is sex, and that's like the number one thing that you try to patch everything else on top of, wisdom of the ages says that there's a likelihood that, it might not have legs to stand on. Mm-hmm. What you guys are describing is not having any preconceived notions or attachments to any particular formula, but really being in touch with your intuition and letting that guide you from that sense of self-awareness. And in your particular case, it was just, you're both just like, yep, this is the thing.
There wasn't
is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
No question.
There wasn't any thought about it.
Right.
It just was. And it was just like guided. Intuition was just like, hell yeah. And we have a saying, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no.
yeah, that's great. I love that.
That's how we live our life and do business. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And for us, it was just a hell yeah.
Well, we know couples who we feel like have had a similar connection to us. And what's common amongst that is that everyone has always said the same thing, that before they met their one and they'd heard that saying, you know when you know. Mm-hmm. No one believes that.
Until you experience it.
Right.
And then you experience it and you're like,
oh.
Yeah.
And you just know.
Yeah, because I had
you
so
just
many friends say that to me. When you know, you know. And I was like, whatever. That's the biggest load of BS I've ever heard. And then when I knew, I called my best friend and I was like, oh my God, I know. And she's like, you know? And I'm like, I just know. Dead set, I know. It's like the easiest decision. Marrying him was the easiest thing I've ever done. There was no question about it. Like our parents, like you could expect that they may have shit come up. Like, you're rushing into this, Melissa. Like, don't you think you should slow down?
Yeah.
And our parents, once they met each other, they were like, oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you guys are soulmates, of course.
Whoa.
Yeah. And our parents used to joke that I'd be sprinting down the aisle. And we were like, we just wanted to be married. We were like, let's just go get the paper. Like, we just love each other so much. And this is almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to be married. We didn't want the whole big shebang. We just wanted to have that union. And yeah, our parents were just like, knowing us, like they're the people that know us very deeply. And they were like, of course that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Melissa's been a blessing to my family. She's cracked my dad wide open.
Oh, wow.
It's
2 birds with 1 stone, eh?
Yeah. Very efficient, wasn't it?
Yeah. A lot of feminine love power. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the main thing, is if you've done the work and you are showing up as yourself, then eventually someone may not, who knows? It depends on your path, but someone may just come along and you're just like, oh, okay. And it's not even exciting, it's just is. It's just like,
is.
It's just like, okay, cool. I get it. Let's go. Let's do
you
it.
Guys, I'm so inspired. It's great to meet you guys and just experience what you guys are sharing. It's really, really special. And thank you for coming in, not only sharing it with me, but sharing it with all the thousands of people that are going to be listening to this. It's really cool. And it's just very timely right now because I've been on such a, as I said, an exploration of all things relationship, and specifically by withdrawing for a considerable period of time now, and just working on myself and observing and learning and just reevaluating my whole view on the thing. So it's just cool to sit here. I really am observing you guys like zoo animals. I'm just like, whoa, how are they doing this thing? These strange creatures that are like seemingly like have a meaningful and like we keep saying, not a perfect relationship, of course, but one that is productive. Let's just say it that way.
It's perfectly imperfect.
It's productive. Like the goal individually, the goals are being accomplished. You're each growing. You're doing it together. There's unity. There's harmony. And you're helping a lot of other people, not the least of which being the ones listening. So where can we find you guys on social media and stuff? Websites, all that?
Yeah, I'm at melissaambrosini.com. My podcast is called The Melissa Ambrosini Show. I hang out on Instagram a lot. That's Melissa Ambrosini. Head to my website, sign up to my newsletter. You can get all the information on my books, when I'm speaking, e-courses, everything. So they're my 3 places.
Yeah, my website's iamnickbroadhurst.com. My Instagram is iamnickbroadhurst. I am Nick Broadhurst. How about that? And my podcast is The Nick Broadhurst Show. And of course, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to music, just search for Nick Broadhurst.
Rad.
And follow the album.
You can check out my music, yeah.
Awesome.
That's
it's
my
good
main
stuff.
goal, really, is to.
Yeah.
Because what I feel when I produce and write that music is just the most expansive, beautiful thing, and I want that to be felt by the people. So everything I do is to make sure that people get that music in their hands so they can feel what I felt when I wrote it.
Awesome. And who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your work that our listeners might be able to go look up and learn from as well?
You go, darling.
Oh, you have definitely been one of my biggest teachers. Absolutely. I think I have to say Louise Hay, because she was instrumental. She was one of the first spiritual books that I picked up. You Can Heal Your Life. And Conversations with God. Neil Donald Walsh, big teacher. That book is life-changing. Everyone needs to read it.
Especially atheists. No, I'm serious. Yeah.
And
open-minded atheists.
Yeah. And I mean, if you struggle with the word.
Well, it's not a religious book, though. That's
Yeah.
why I say that. It has nothing to do with religion. But I think if you're a thoughtful person, you could read that book and say, this message came from some divine intelligence. Put it that way,
Exactly.
yeah.
And yeah, I say if you struggle with the word God, change it to love, change it to bliss, change it to whatever, so you can get through that book, because it's life-changing.
Yeah, right on.
I'd have to say it's hard to go past that book because of the impact it had on me in that moment on the boat and bringing us together ultimately.
Right.
Creating the space, So I definitely would have to point to Neil Donald Walsh. But
very auspicious that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
it is. I mean, David Dieter with his work with The Way of the Superior Man and Dear Lover.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, when it comes to not just relationships, but just knowing yourself, if you don't have that core understanding of the masculine and the feminine, how that plays out in your life, how it plays out in your relationships, I feel like there was Nick before masculine and feminine understanding, and there's Nick after. And they're 2 very different people. I was given a roadmap to know myself, and it's the fundamentals, really. Like, it really is the fundamentals. In many ways, I see also like Ayurveda to me is another sort of key to the matrix. It's a way of looking at life through a lens that gives so much clarity. So definitely Neil Donald Walsh, definitely David Dieter. I think I'd have to point to some musicians as well, because there's something that happens when you listen to a song that no book can do. There's a song there's a song that brought me back to music, which was Weird Fishes by Radiohead.
Don't know it.
Yeah, and it just
so good.
I remember hearing it. I don't know how I missed the song, and I heard it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Oh God, how long? How long have we been together? 5. Maybe 6 years ago I heard it and I just went, holy crap, what am I doing with my life? Like, I want to make people feel that way. So listen to Weird Fishes by Radiohead.
I'm going to listen to it tonight.
It has
It's
a weird...
so
I wish you
beautiful.
could play, like secular commercial music in your podcast. Like, wouldn't it be sick to have the outro of the show segue into that song now? But then I think I'd have to pay Radiohead or something.
Well, you can use mine.
Yes.
I'm always so... Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I will. Thank you.
Yes.
For every show? No.
And the album is called Thank You, so...
Yeah, but do you know what I'm saying? Do you
Yeah.
ever want to do that on your podcast? I really want to make, an NPR kind of cool intros and outros with music. And I'm like, God, I can't use anyone's music unless, I've had it made or licensed or stock music or something.
I'm lucky because
You just use all
I just
yours.
use mine.
That's great,
And that's
yeah.
part of the story. And I've actually used one person's song.
Oh, okay.
And he's an artist from the 40s called Lenny Tristano. He's a
Oh,
jazz
interesting.
pianist. And that was because it's a whole other story. But it's an episode called My Past Life. And he was me.
Whoa.
And you have to listen or read that episode to understand what I'm saying. But I thought, screw the freaking copyright. I'm putting this in my podcast because it's me.
Whoa.
So that was a profound thing as well that happened
Rad.
to me. Yeah.
Well, you just inspired me. Maybe I just need to go make some. I'm a musician too. I don't play in bands anymore, but I did for a long time. Maybe I just need to go make some of my own damn
Just
music.
make it. Yeah.
Then I can use whatever I want. God
Yeah.
damn it. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for coming by and being on the show. I appreciate it. And I want you to enjoy the rest of your visit in the United States.
Thank you. Thanks for having
much
us.
for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, accents and all.
It's been awesome.